Welcome to DIY Therapy. As always, we'll start with our disclaimer. This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not designed to diagnose or treat. When beginning any exercise program, it should be reviewed and discussed with your medical professional prior to beginning. Information on this podcast is not designed to replace medical treatment. My name is Will, and with me as always is Andy, and I can't read as per usual. So
Take 3? Take 4? What do we want to do with this?
I was assured there would be no math, so...
Well, we have had some of our struggles here, haven't we? We recorded one whole podcast. That's why there's a delay in this one. For 25-minute podcast it didn't take, and then
it was an hour and a half. It was
an hour and a half.
It was our magnum opus. It was very in depth. It was. I think we solved basically all of the world's problems, and it's just gone.
Hunger,
and I can't remember any of it.
Racism, all of it.
All of it.
We solved it all. Mm-hmm. It was sadly, though, as we discussed prior to the podcast, that was actually probably one of our winners. We throw out some duds from time to time, most of the time. But that was actually a pretty good podcast. So now we're the challenge is to kind of reproduce that, which we'll probably fail at because God forbid we actually do anything well twice in a row.
Yeah, can we get the magic back?
Absolutely not. So. Anything new with you?
Not a whole lot. Not too much. How about yourself?
No. Well, yes, actually, as you know, I dropped my phone this morning, and so my iPhone is now shattered. And so I was at the Verizon store earlier today, and I've got to get that figured out. I keep picking out shards of glass in my thumb from swiping. Maybe I should just put it down for half a morning, but
yeah,
obviously I can't because I'm addicted. So
I mean, you'll solve one problem by creating another.
There you go.
Your thumb will be just nothing but a bloody mess, and you'll finally, I need to unplug. Okay, I think we're talking about pain triggers today.
Pain triggers, yep. So there was a nice article that came out recently that looked at really from a biomechanical standpoint, so kind of the way the bones, joints, muscles all kind of move on top of each other, what type of physical activities, movements, different things throughout your daily lifestyle bring on and trigger your pain. And it was kind of a nice, we're going to highlight a few of those today. But it was a nice little article that still kind of, it really, I think for the most part, it really identifies with a lot of the themes that we really try to teach here on our channel, is that, you have to identify, one of the first things you have to do is you have to identify what one of the big, or what the drivers of your symptoms are. So in other words, there are certain things throughout your day that make your pain go up and certain things that make your pain go down.
Hence
and if
the
you can
triggers.
identify... Yes, hence the trigger. And so if you can identify these different activities throughout your day, then you can either try to avoid them, you can try to prevent them, you can modify those activities, which will then slowly start to decrease your exposure to those and therefore decrease your pain. And so that's part of our whole process, is trying to teach people, really what it is that's driving their symptoms and then how to modify, avoid for a time period, then slowly introduce it. With that being said, there's quite a few, and I don't, sadly now, I don't have it in front of me, so you might.
I'm getting it right now.
Okay, so you might have to ramble off the actual percentages on some of the topics we're going to talk about today. But what we'll do is we'll hit some of the big ones and kind of talk about some ways to maybe avoid those and give people some. And this is in regards, by the way, the study is in regards to low back pain. But it's really applicable to anything. So if you've got ankle pain and going up and down stairs hurts, well, then we need to look at how we modify those things. If we've got shoulder pain and, you have pain reaching across the countertop directly to your side, and that is a trigger, then we need to modify that. So, I mean, it's still applicable, even though these statistics are really for low back pain, it's still applicable to really each and every body part.
Yeah, so the biggest one that triggered everything was they qualify it as, I would put these kind of two together, as biomedical triggers and active movements. I would just say,
what was the percentage on those?
Biomedical triggers was 84.8%.
Oh no, that's the whole thing. That's the whole category.
I'm cutting all this part out then. So the first.
No, you gotta leave it in.
Yeah, I will.
You gotta leave it in.
That would be work. The first one on there is active movements.
Okay, so active movements. So that's active movements are always kind of they're specific, right? Like, hey, they're very easy to identify. Like, hey, I bent over and I had pain. Okay, yeah. I bent over and picked something up. I had pain. I reached
over my head and I have pain.
Yeah,
I carry this thing.
Yeah. Those are always the things that are like the easiest for people to identify with, which I think they're really kind of self-explanatory, and really from like a strategy standpoint and trying to problem solve, how do we not do these things? Well, when it's very very specific, I reach for this, I bend for this, I twist for this. What we need to do is we need to move our body. We need to use better body mechanics. We need to, when we're lifting things, we need to hold them closer to us. When we're bending over, we need to bend at the knees and not so much at the low back versus the knees and the hips. But those things aren't usually as challenging to problem solve because there's this direct cause and effect relationship. I always tell people in the clinic, it's not hard to figure out what the cause of your pain is if you stub your toe outside and you have immediate pain. What's hard to identify in terms of triggers is, when you are agitating it and then 2, 3, 4 hours later, your pain starts to come on, which is very, very common with low back pain and spine pain. So that's really the challenge at hand, is identifying those triggers that are not that direct cause and effect relationship.
Yeah. Those are you have to really kind of pay attention to what your body's doing, and it's anything outside the norm is always a trigger, not a trigger, but a good thing to think about, because a lot of times they'll do something that they don't think is not abnormal, and they think a patient will have increased pain, but then you have to kind of drill down on it, and then they'll realize, oh, I did this one thing differently, and then a few hours later I had increased pain.
Mm-hmm. So what's the next thing on the list there, Will?
The next one on the list is static postures, with sitting being the number one among that makes it worse.
Okay. I'm trying to pull it up here on my phone now. See if I can actually find it. All right, there we are. Okay. Yeah. So static postures. Okay, I see where you're at.
You see what I mean? Because there's active movements at 2, 2, 8, and then there's just this kind of random numbers. And I think I'm not going to do the math. And next is static postures, things like sitting, standing, just general posture. Probably poor posture. It doesn't say poor posture, but one would assume.
Yeah. So the posture is always kind of an interesting thing, because there isn't, if you look at the research, there isn't a specific bad posture versus good posture. Again, posture is going to be very unique to any person. So whatever it is that's triggering your pain is going to be a bad posture, and whatever gives you a little bit of relief is going to be a good posture. Some people will actually, who are I've had a lot of people who I've worked with who are in the military and, have to stand at attention, and they actually have significant amount of pain in increased extension. And these are young people, which usually that feels good for young people.
Yeah.
And vice versa, someone who is at their computer all day long and constantly irritating by being more in kind of a poor forward flex, bent forward position posture, that posture triggers their pain. So it's still identifying what's unique to you and what corresponds to your pain. But really the biggest thing with posture is always being variable, right? So just giving yourself relief over a period of time by altering the different positions you can be in. So it's not necessarily even that being in, one of your triggering posture positions is bad. It's that you're doing that for too long of a period of time, and you need to vary that either with a break or changing your positioning or altering. I've actually had people where they've set up their phones, their iPhones, or their Samsungs or whatever smartphones, and they've got it. Yeah, I'm looking for some sponsors.
I kind of gathered that.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the guy kept saying Zappos shoes, and I finally realized that Zappos was actually
A website
sponsoring them. Yeah, well, no, I knew it was a website. Not that I let my wife go on those, but I did not realize that they were a sponsor, and he just kept throwing out Zappos.
Zappos. That's hilarious.
Zappos. Zappos, if you're listening,
yeah, we will gladly take
open.
All right, you know what?
Type of sponsor.
Those are. They have a lot of a great selection of shoes.
Fantastic selection. I mean, we have 3 listeners now. Your wife, my wife, and your mom.
With free returns and free delivery, it's up to almost a year of returns. It's amazing.
Is that legit?
Yes. You could wear a pair. You could get a pair of shoes from them, wear them for 364 days, and then return them.
Seriously?
Yeah. It used to be that way. I don't know if that's still the case.
That can't be true. They're shoes.
Yeah.
All right.
I always feel like.
So where were we at? I got distracted.
Static posture is in any position, good or bad, is not necessarily great for you. Our bodies are built to move. If you hang out in any single position for too long, whether it be a good one or a bad one, is going to agitate you.
Yeah. And, the thing about posture, too, is that is also challenging about identifying the trigger is that, again, you don't necessarily have that direct cause and effect relationship. And that's where it's important to, when you are having pain, look back on your daily activities and say, okay, well, what did I do? How did I spend the last 3 or 4 hours when you can't put your finger on, exactly what triggered your symptoms. So always look into your past if you're not quite sure about what's triggering your pain, because it's always important to kind of identify that. And maybe this is a good time. I think when we talked about this the other day, when we had the iPod or the podcast that we had to delete, we actually talk about what is like mechanical pain and that sort of thing.
Yeah, define mechanical pain.
Yeah, so mechanical pain is really defined as any type of pain that varies, pain that goes up, pain that goes down. A lot of times I'll have patients that come in and their initial response when I ask them, okay, well, what changes your pain? And they say, well, no, I always have pain. Okay. And so when we look at mechanical pain is something that we as therapists love because that tells us that there's a pattern associated with it. But mechanical pain is also, a variation in terms of, the intensity of pain. So you can have constant pain, but the intensity can change from a 2 to a 6. That's still variable pain. Or you could have a constant pain that your pain is always at a 4, but the size of the pain changes, or the radius, maybe the location of the pain changes. You can have mechanical pain where the sensation type actually changes, where it goes from a burning to a stabbing to an aching, etc. And so there's different types of variable pain. Those are all examples of variable or mechanical pain. Constant pain, if you're actually having just constant pain where no matter what, it doesn't matter what activities you do, you start off your day, you're at a 5 out of 10 and it's a burning. And you end your day and it's a 5 out of 10 and it's a burning. And there's no changes in any type of activities, then that is considered constant pain. That is something that you probably need to really talk to your physician about because that's probably something that from a conservative standpoint can't be treated. So probably good for us to define that, even though it's 25 minutes into the podcast. But it's important to know what we're actually trying to work on here.
Yeah, very very little pain is constant pain in the way that it's always just I'm always at a 3 and it just never changes.
Yeah, that's very rare. Very rare. It does happen. It does happen.
You can be in constant pain, but sometimes things make it go up and down. So that's what we're looking at. It's not necessarily it hurts all of the time. Yeah, we get that, but what makes it go up and what makes it go down? Mm-hmm.
So so static positioning or any kind of positioning is going to always be really important. It's something that you have to keep monitoring, and if you don't, you're going to have challenges in regards to trying to manage your symptoms.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And that's a difficult thing to get your brain around sometimes.
Yeah, always. What else is here? So I've got it up here. It looks like overdoing a task, and then also like physical activity. Those are both
kind of tied together a little bit.
Fairly high. Yeah, we talked about this on our podcast that we deleted, and it was kind of a good talking point. So physical activity I always look at as like, hey, it's not something that you're doing on a regular basis. Like if you're in landscaping and you're raking every day, well, that's your work, right? That's your job. But if you're outside in your lawn and you're raking, in the fall or in the spring, and that's something that you're not used to, that would be considered physical activity. Maybe exercise would be considered physical activity, and then overdoing it would also be, doing those things for too long of a period of time. But those are I think it looks like they account for about 15% of the triggers. So what I would tell you is if you're close to an incident of some type of pain in your back, is to try to limit the amount of exposure you have to these different things. If you're not used to raking or being in the yard, or it's the first day of spring and you're outside mulching for 3 hours and you had a back pain incident a month prior, well, you might expose yourself to more potential for injury there. So, nobody likes to break up activities, but you may want to do, 35, 45 minutes at a time, one day, or break it up on your Saturday or your Sunday or your days off. That way you're not overexposing yourself to those types of injuries, because most injuries, when it's due to activity, is usually due to overexposure or fatigue and endurance and the lack of capabilities of the spine to maintain those activities for a long period of time.
Yeah, I agree.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that it can happen to. I mean, I'm in fairly good shape, and it'll happen to me, and I still take random breaks when I'm like raking during the fall, just because our yard is so big and we have so many stupid trees. I mean, they're not stupid.
You do have a lot of stupid trees.
They're not stupid, but they're stupid for losing all their leaves very slowly, as opposed to just dumping them all. That way I can be done with it.
Wow. That's what you'd like, huh? Just one big tree.
Yeah, one big. Well, I would like all the leaves down at once, and then I can just deal with it once and never have to go back and do it over and over and over.
That would be ideal.
Would it? I mean, I don't know. I feel like my rake would break.
Yeah, I don't know. I would suggest mulching. That's what I do. Just mulch it. When in doubt, just mulch it.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to look into that.
I don't know. I'm not sure. We don't have that many leaves, so. Let's see what else here is on this thing here. Overdoing a task, work. Obviously, work is always going to be very specific. This was a topic we talked about. Sex is 0.6%. Okay, so basically, no one has pain with sex, which is always interesting because it's something that people enjoy. So because you're enjoying the activity,
we assume that you're enjoying that activity.
Yeah, I guess there is an assumption there.
You can't. I mean,
we won't go there. I don't know.
I'm not qualified to speak about that.
Yeah, either am I. But yeah, so it's always interesting to see like some of these activities that people enjoy doing, are much lower down on the list, and the things that people don't love doing, the negativity that's associated with it, typically people are having more triggers with them. So I think that's always an interesting little topic to talk about.
Everybody's pain is, specific to themselves and how you're mentally not necessarily handling it, but how much you're paying attention to it or not paying attention to it.
Yeah. I don't know. You have anything else to talk about? I think we kind of went through this fairly quickly. Boy, we did a really poor job compared to the first time, didn't we?
It's
I'm going to blame that on me because I've been distracted. I've got dogs barking in the background, and I was half driving through all this on the way over.
Yeah, half driving. I thought you were going to say half drunk. I'm like, wait, you half drunk and driving?
Huh? Well, it is 11 in the morning, so.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
That's right. So, anything else going on with you? Oh, I do have to tell you this. I am about halfway through catching up on the last season of Game of Thrones, just to ramp up for the season premiere in a week and a half. And I have to tell you that it is watching them in succession is phenomenal. I forgot how fun it is to actually, this is me
rather than waiting a week or whatever.
Yes. And it's been almost 2 years since I've seen these episodes, so some of them, the details, the main plot points I remember, obviously, but the details I do not remember. And it's been a joy to watch. I tell you what, a joy to watch. And I'm pumped for the new season. So I would recommend catching up on the last season.
Yeah, I should do that before. Well, it's gonna be tricky to plow through that in the amount of time that I have.
What? How can you say that?
Because I have other responsibilities besides just sitting down and watching. How many hours? 10 hours?
No,
it's 12. How many hours?
No, there's only 7 episodes.
Oh,
7
there is.
hours.
Maybe I could do that then.
You can with your schedule these days.
Yeah, I probably could pull that off.
I'm pretty sure you could pull that off.
I probably could.
I'm pretty sure.
All right, ready to wrap this up?
Yep, go for it.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. Again.
Was it?
Yeah. It's always at the end. In the beginning, it always seems good that I say that, but in the end, it's always like, It's not designed. It's not designed to diagnose or treat. When beginning any exercise program, it should be reviewed and discussed with your medical professional prior to beginning. Information on this podcast is not designed to replace medical treatment. Remember, treat yourself. There we go.
Take 2.
Bulls.